Brother John.
Hello there.
Aloha, my brother.
How you doing?
How are you? Good to hear your voice.
Dave Lawrence. All things considered.
First and most importantly, a big aloha and mahalo and welcome back, John. I really appreciate it, man.
Aloha, aloha.
And
How is it? Well, wait, it must be breakfast time there, right?
you and I are in completely different time zones, and it's just a thrill that we get to have because we've been doing this series off the road. We talk to people all over the world. You're the only one we've had from Monaco, so it's really a thrill that we get to talk to you in such an unusual place.
Unusual. Well, it's small. It's a principality, but when last weekend was the Grand Prix of Monaco, and there were a lot of people, although not nearly as many as it usually would hold because of the pandemic, of course.
Right.
But it was pretty full. People wearing masks. We all wear masks in the streets still now. It's still going on. So but it's beginning, and it will in about a week loosen up. But we've been living with a curfew for about 4 months now. But it's been extended. It was 6 o'clock, then 7 o'clock, then 8 o'clock, and now it's 9 o'clock. I know, it was terrible for the restaurant business. I mean, nothing open at night, and but they're starting to open up a little bit now because of there was special kind of consideration in Monaco for so the restaurants could open, and as you come out of the restaurant, you finish a meal. The person who welcomes you into the restaurant takes you to the table, gives you a paper signed with the name of the restaurant that you ate there. So, because if you're out, the curfew's there, and you're out after curfew, the police can stop you, say, "Where have you been?" And you show this paper. "I've just been for a pizza or whatever, a nice meal somewhere," and they say, "Fine, okay, go ahead." It's weird, but the whole world is weird, isn't it?
It's like a permission slip from the days of school.
It is. I mean, but with grounds, I mean, it's just justifiable. It's just a pain in the neck, really. But I mean, it's coming down here because it got really bad, especially in the whole region of the south of France. It was really, I was on the red list, but we finally knocked it down, and I've been vaccinated, so my wife and my son gets vaccinated tomorrow. So
Oh,
it's moving.
that's,
Anyway, I don't think you're here to talk about COVID-19. Not really. Indirectly.
well, certainly one aspect of it has been the way that you've recently been touched. I wanted to guess start with a related note. You have that mission you've been on trying to raise support and funds for folks in India, a place you've had just a long connection to, and you recently released a video, in fact, quite recently, featuring a tune from your Is That So album, Saki, to support the Khalsa Aid charity. Tell folks about this, and if you want, take a moment to give visibility to this passion of yours.
Well, this was the second audio visual thing for India. India is going through just a terrible time. And they have the variants which are much more infectious. And while they are the greatest producer of vaccines in the world, I mean, they have a population of 1.3 billion. So they've diverted exporting shots of the vaccine to vaccinate the local, I mean, the Indian people, because they're actually still way behind because they were exporting. It wasn't so bad in the beginning, but then it became very bad, and then they had Indian variant you might have heard about that's doubly infectious and quite mortal also. So, but the sake, yeah, it's from Is That So, but it's a live version in entre parenthèses, and it was done in California, in Monaco, and in India. where the different places where the three of us live. Zakir's in California and Shankar's in Mumbai in India. So, but I think it came out wonderfully well. And the young woman who did the video editing, she's really super.
Yeah.
And she did a fantastic job. But about 10 days before that one came out yesterday,
Straight No Chaser.
There was a jazz tune from a quartet, where we recorded a tune from Thelonious Monk, Straight No Chaser. I don't know if you got to see that. That was also for India.
Yes, I did, supporting
Yeah.
Project Hope.
Yes, exactly. And well, I mean, it's a different charity this time. The one that Shankar chose, but we chose Hope from here because they're also on the ground in India. Really, I mean, hands-on help, and that's what they need. So we know it's a little kind of drop in the ocean, but every ocean is made from drops, isn't it? In the end, so we have to do what we have to do. Basically, where we're all coming from. I mean, particularly in this strange world, and I'm not just talking about COVID-19, but the world has become divisive. It's not just fascist and religious fascism and cultural racial divisions. It's just, or maybe they were just there all along, but kind of unable to come out because of the norms of society. And the norms of society, I'm sure you can see, Dave, they've changed, and so people just say, it's the era of if I feel it like that, that's the truth. Just to carry on, that's 18 months now. All tours canceled, all gigs canceled. So the only thing I've been doing with musicians and musician friends and people around the world is doing these kind of videos for YouTube. Either just in the beginning, especially in the beginning, was just like, hi, we're here, we're alive. To the people who listen to us and follow us. But quite quickly became apparent that people I mean, millions, hundreds of millions of people are in much worse situation than me and my family are in. So it was incumbent on me to try to do something, even though it's just a drop in the ocean, as I said. But basically, even more so, just to end this particular digression, if we don't start caring for each other, really taking care of each other, I think we'll be doomed in the end. We'll end divided. Divided we fall, as the saying goes. Anyway, that's basically what we've been doing, and that's the only happiness I've been able to get is these little things going out and of course enjoying playing, even at a distance, social distancing, recording. But we've had such a lot of nice echoes coming back from people, just say thank you, that's all, just thank you, and that's enough. That makes me happy that we're doing something instead of sitting around enjoying Groundhog Day every day.
Well, you're certainly not. I mean, that's and you mentioned and I agree on the divisiveness. I guess we really feel it here in America, but that's keen. It's very observant of you to point out. I guess it's something that's more global of a phenomena, despite our own issues with that, as you've been seeing that have happened in the U.S. It's more of a global thing. But when you talk about the slow moving towards an end of the social distancing, which you've alluded to, one of these two projects recorded remotely, as you were saying. The other one was one of these rare moments. I'm assuming you have not been on stage too often with other musicians like the Straight No Chaser was.
No, that was I mean, that was thanks to the what I would call la direction des arts and de la culture de Monaco. And when, I mean, you're referring to the Jazz Day, I presume, yeah?
Yep, yep.
Yeah, and when I got the call that I would be participating again, I went to the direction of the cultural affairs, and I said, you know about UNESCO, and every year, 30th of April is Jazz Day, International Jazz Day, sponsored by UNESCO. I said, instead of doing just a single one-off thing, which is what we did last year, everybody did a solo thing at home and then sent it off, and they just played the video. The request this year was like, can you get a hold of some local musicians and do a thing, like country to country, and so being in Monaco, I went and I spoke about this, and they were so enthusiastic about it. So they loaned us a theater with the lights. I mean, the team with sound and lights and everything, and so we were able to use a stage. So we took advantage of that situation to do three pieces. The first, which was the Light at the Edge of the World, which is such a lovely piece. That was recorded quite a while ago by Pharoah Sanders, but it's actually a piece from an Italian film music writer called Piero Piccioni. And it's a lovely tune. But the Straight No Chaser, this was for India, and we did a third piece, which it's a standard called There Is No Greater Love. I don't know if you know that tune from the 50s. It's a lovely piece. And we did that for the Italian Red Cross.
Oh, wow.
With who were working with the Blue Note in Milan. So that's what we've been doing. I mean, of course, I put out a social distancing recording, and there's a few things been going on because, for example, I just finished working with the engineer and the team who are putting out an album, a compilation album of me, at different performances at the Montreux Jazz Festival in Switzerland. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's really famous. And of course, I've been going there since '71. And so there's no shortage of material. And it's actually a very interesting album because it's double vinyl, and it's got the last edition of Mahavishnu Orchestra. It's got the heart of things. It's got One Truth Band, the Free Spirits. It's got Paco and me.
Wow.
When we did a duo tour in '87 in Europe, and of course we did a stop in Montreux. Fourth Dimension is there, of course. No, I mean, it's really, I mean, you talk about diversity. This really, it shows, how I'm like a butterfly. I go from this flower to that flower
Right.
to another one.
It's your journey
But
through the years.
they're all, and Shakti's not even on it. They're thinking about putting an entire album out of some of the Shakti concerts. But for me, they're all part of, they're all diamonds, in music, aren't they? Whatever form of music you hear, it's either got meaning or it doesn't. It's either it's well played or not so well played, or it's not too much meaning or it has meaning. And so, of course, we always try to get as much heart and soul into it as possible. But I'm very pleased with the way it's come out, even though there were no multi-track recordings. Everything was just like stereo. So, but it's good. I mean, they did a really good job.
You've got so many recordings that have this time has been a very prolific one, because the Liberation Time album, which has just come out, is some really fiery material on that one, and you've got this custom hand-picked cast of characters on each tune, recorded remotely, but yet you wouldn't know that when you listen to it. Like, for example, it opens with this jam, "As the Spirit Sings," and when I listen to that as a longtime Mahavishnu and McLaughlin fan, it reminds me of like that huge guitar lick in the main refrain. For me, it has the feeling of an opening of a Mahavishnu album, like Meeting of the Spirits might have had from Intermounting
Well,
Flame.
yeah, I mean, well, it's all in there, isn't it, Dave? It's all in there, and they all come out in the different ways, the music. But I'm not surprised you find it energetic because it was really born out of a really profound frustration with the situation, having everything canceled last year, and being at home, and even in spite of being able to do these things for charitable institutions, not playing, not going out on tour, which my whole life is like is on the road, and and so to be at home, you know, and especially in the beginning, it was very rigorous kind of quarantine here. I went out on my bike in the middle of a quarantine because we were allowed to go 1K out of the house. And you know, Monaco is small, and I ended up 500 meters outside of Monaco in France, and I got busted for being 500 meters too far, and I got hit for 135 euros. That's like 140 bucks.
Right.
That's, yeah, and I think the police made a lot of money in that time.
When did that happen?
That happened. Oh no, it's over a year ago because the quarantine kicked in already March last year here. So
you're saying some of the frustration I hear, the energy, the power in that
absolutely
track comes from these experiences.
It was like a big cauldron brewing inside of me, and basically the music came out with. I just said, okay, I cannot take it anymore. I've got to get whatever's in there. It's got to come out. And about after 2 weeks, every piece was out there, and I said, okay, I have to now. What am I going to do? Okay, you know, don't have a band, but at least since everybody's now is doing, you know, distance recording, just let me take some people I haven't played with and some friends, you know, a local band here. Like, for example, on the Singing Our Secrets, that's the group that you saw on the video doing Straight No Chaser. I mean, and they're really fine. I mean, the two of them, the piano player and the bass player, they're professors at the Academy of Jazz in Monaco. So I mean, they're fine players. The keyboard players, he is really world class, you know, but nobody knows of him. But they'll know a little bit of him after this recording. And the young drummer, he's from Nice, Nicolas Vicaro, but really such a fine player. I mean, just a pleasure to play with these people. You know, and this Egyptian pianist, Oz Esseldine, that we've known each other through the internet for at least a couple of years now, and was able to get him involved. And it was just really, it was so easy. The only thing that happened that I didn't expect was when the recordings came back with various people, the character stayed the same, but it developed to the degree where I had to redo my part because they were so on. I think the whole world was frustrated. even now. But then musicians were really, by that time, by October last year, I mean, everybody was like, get me out of here.
You also did some solo pieces, though, which is notable because here's this cat who people like Pat Metheny and Jeff Beck call the greatest guitarist ever, and you're back on the piano for two solo cuts that are on there, Mila Repa and Shade of Blue. Am I pronouncing the first one right? And explain your journey on the piano as a little boy, and then here you are back there by
Yeah.
yourself.
Well, yes, I know. Milarepa, he was a Tibetan Buddhist master whom I'm very attached to. He had a fantastic life, this man, and definitely worth reading his life story. Milarepa. It's in honor of him. But I should point out that these, you know, in a way, when I saw the music coming out, and me personally, I don't like to mess with the ideas that come out of me. I like them to leave them the way they are and not try to control them.
Mm.
I'd rather be controlled by them, directed by them, and the nature of the pieces reminded me of my roots that go back to the 50s and 60s, with Miles and Coltrane. Definitely with acoustic bass. I wanted an acoustic bass, and the rhythms were more straight ahead as opposed to like kind of rock or funky, and it just went that way. And these two pieces of solo piano, I know it might sound hard to believe, but were recorded about 35 years ago. MIDI recordings when my refugee technique on piano had not completely disappeared, and I found them going through the archives, my own archives one day, and I felt, I said, why shouldn't they go out? Because in a way, I felt they were appropriate to this album and the music on this album. I know it sounds strange, but I just felt that. So I said, okay. And of course, since they were MIDI recordings, I asked Gary Husband, who's playing piano and drums on the album. He has these Vienna orchestra pianos, you know, these big Bosendorfers and Steinways. And so, because I'd recorded it with the pedals of the keyboard, everything was recorded. So all we had to do was run that MIDI file through Gary's computer and with his wonderful Vienna pianos, and that was the result. So they both went on. I admit I could not play them like that today. They're really they're from the past, you know.
Wow, that's
They're
great
personal.
insight.
They're very personal.
That's great insight, and very humbling to hear. Well, I mean, you're just the thought to hear you playing them. I was sitting this past weekend. I used the record as fish tank cleaning music and played it several times over. I kind of looped it and was going through the tunes and listening. And I had not sat and really listened to you do something like that. And then I was reading about your history and how you had really, as a little boy, started on, the piano as one of your very first instruments, huh?
Oh yeah, and I love pianos to this day. I mean, I don't know if you know the Thieves and Poets album, but there are four standards on there with the Time Remembered group, six guitars, but all four standards are dedicated to my favorite piano players. And one is Herbie, of course, whom I love since I heard him already in 65. Chick, of course, my dear brother Chick. Bill Evans, of course, one of the gods of piano, and a very dear friend and a fantastic musician and pianist, Gonzalo Rubalcaba.
Oh, yeah.
Out of Cuba. So they're all for pianists. So, I didn't dedicate it to one guitar player. I don't know if I've ever dedicated a piece. Oh yeah, I've dedicated a piece to Paco. I think that's probably it.
On that note, you mentioned him, and I had wanted to ask because that's one of the, since we last spoke, two luminaries came to mind that I was curious if you could share a story or two about them and your crossing paths and the way that you look at them. Let me read you first a quote from Chick Corea talking about you in an interview with Downbeat magazine. And the late, great Chick Corea remarked that, quote, what John McLaughlin did with the electric guitar set the world on its ear. No one ever heard an electric guitar played like that before, and it certainly inspired me. He went on to say, John's band, more than my experience with Miles, led me to want to turn the volume up and write music that was more dramatic and made your hair stand on end. And with that in mind, take us back to first meeting him, getting to know him. Share a little bit that will personalize this cat.
Wow. Oh, Chick. Oh dear. That's very moving. Especially we just lost him recently. That's hard. You know, you know, it just gives credence to my conviction that the greatest players are the simplest of people, and Chick was one of them, because he came to me at one point. I mean, we've done all kinds of things together, not just 5-piece band, but we actually toured Europe as a duo in the 1980s. In fact, there's even a recording of us in Montreux, the two of us, piano, just acoustic guitar and piano, acoustic piano. But we were hanging out, and one day he said, I have to tell you that what was the name of his band again? The Electric Band, not the Electric Band. Return to Forever.
Right.
Yeah, he said, Return to Forever is son of Mahavishnu. That is. And I said, oh, Chick, you're too much. You're too much, too sweet. But, we go back to 1969, January. It's the day I arrived in New York from Europe. And right away, we were in the Baron Club because Tony, I was there to play with Tony, but he was doing his final week with Miles. And he'd chosen that week because he had his drums at the Baron Club in Harlem. And
Tony Williams we're talking about here.
Tony Williams, yeah, and Larry Young had his Hammond organ there. And so we would rehearse. We were able to rehearse in the afternoon at the Club Baron, and then he would play at night with Miles for that last week before Lifetime took off on its own. But Chick, I was standing at the bar at the Club Baron at night. I was jet lagged because I'd just flown in from Europe. But he came up, he said, oh, you're John. Yeah, man. He said, you're going to be playing with Tony. It's cool. Whoa, man. Yeah, beautiful. And right away, we hit it off. And I'd known him, not personally, but Chick has been around a long time, and he's been a fine musician for a long time. I don't know if you know of an album by Montego Joe that came out in '67.
Nope.
And Chick is on it, and I had a copy of that album, and I said, who is this piano player? Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I've always been sensitive to piano, but it's normal. I had 4 years of playing piano. I mean, okay, it was Mozart and Beethoven, but that's I'm still sensitive to piano, and I just loved his playing. And I knew, I said to myself, this guy's going to end up with playing with the big guys, either Sonny Rollins or Dexter or Miles even. And the next thing I knew, he was playing with Miles. And from that point, we actually were living in the same neighborhood, which was so cool. And we went through this period where Chick got involved with Scientology. And I was heavily into yoga and meditation and hatha yoga. But I was also fascinated by the Sufi movement. The Sufi movement is I would say, is the esoteric side of Islam, which is beautiful. I know you hear the word Islam, people think terrorists and stuff, but the Sufis are just marvelous. This is the true Islam, so beautiful. And I would run into Paul Motion, the drummer with Bill Evans Trio in the '60s. We ran into each other every week, every time I was there, Monday night on in New York. And Chick got very much involved into Scientology, and we started to have these philosophical arguments.
Wow.
And we had white nights where we're discussing, the pros and cons of each particular philosophy of L. Ron Hubbard, or whether it was Milarepa, for example, who I was already aware of, or the Zen Buddhists, or just some of the Indian traditions of the Upanishads, and we would just, it was wonderful. And so we were digging into each other. And in the end, we agreed to disagree because neither of us wanted to go the way of the other. He didn't want to come and see Ma Yoga Shakti giving a lecture on enlightenment, and I wasn't interested in going to Scientology either. So, but, we got to know each other's inside really well. And I really loved this guy. He's a beautiful human being, and what a player, what a musician. So, of course, the collaborations we had were always a joy, always. And of course, he was extremely fond of Paco. I mean, at the one time, Paco toured with I think they did an American tour together, Paco and Chick's band. And one of the great records of Chick is My Spanish Heart, which is really something because Chick's got Italian origins.
Yeah. From the Boston area, no doubt.
But he's got that that thing with Hispanic music that I think most of us have. Because I mean, if you recall the album of Miles Ahead, the Miles put out with the Gil Evans Big Band in 1958, and and you hear Miles's love for Hispanic music in general and flamenco in particular. And there's one track on there called Blues for Pablo, where, for me, and this is the first kind of like fusion jazz, because it's jazz with this Hispanic influence, flamenco influence, beautiful. And Chick had it too. And I had it because I got very influenced by the flamenco players when I was right after my blues influence. Because coming out of the classical piano, the first musical impact I had on the guitar were the blues players. That's thanks to my elder brothers, who were fully aware of the blues wave that hit the UK in the early 50s. So that Hispanic thing was wonderful. But he loved that, and he loved Paco, and they had a great time together. And we were all very close to each other. And I've lost them both now. It's terrible.
You offer him that story is a great tribute, though, to agree to disagree. And that's an area of his life you don't often hear about either. That's a fascinating side to him, his spiritual pursuit, or whatever you would call that, his connection to Scientology. And it's an interesting period. You had Sri Chinmoy, that was right around that time for you.
Yeah, that came about a year later, something like that. Yeah, because I was doing 3 hours a day of hatha yoga, which is fantastic. I think that's probably why I'm still healthy today. I did it for a couple of years, but in the end, I got bored doing so much hatha yoga, and I said, no, I have to get into meditation, and so I started looking around. I started shopping around, Dave, for gurus, and really, I went to see. I was doing like Ma Yoga Shakti was one of the lady yogis that I was very attached to, and Pir Vilayat Khan, who's head of the Sufis. I really liked him. Um, and what was it, this name? Was another one I got involved with. But in the end, I went to see Sri Chinmoy, and he gave a wonderful answer to a question I asked him at the end of the meditation. And I'll tell you what the question was. I said, well, because I'm a musician, um, uh, can through music, can I reach some kind of enlightenment? Even B class or C class. But and he said that's a really nice question. But I should tell you that you can get the same kind of level of enlightenment. Music is very useful. He said, but if you sweep the street with love and devotion and elegance and eloquence, then you can get to enlightenment in the same time, in the same way. And I thought that was a wonderful answer. That just kind of opened my mind up that, yeah, music is marvelous and I love it. And it's helped me so much in my life, basically saved me. But it's not the form that's important. It's the intent that's important. And that changed me. And so I said, no, I want to stay with this guy. So I stayed with him for 5 years, studying meditation with him.
No, it's
and
incredible.
Here I am, how many years later? I don't know. And I'm meditating every day, Dave.
It's over 50 years, man. I mean, it's about that. And the meditation, I mean, we talked long about that before, and you shared a lot of how you meditate. It was very valuable. So I thanked you then, but I thank you again for having the time. I think it was 2015 when we talked, and you really laid out how you meditate, your views on it. It was such a useful thing for so many folks. I got comments from people about that. So
I'm glad.
It means a lot coming, like you said, it's a lifetime of it. And from Chick, there was another cat, because I don't want to not have gotten to this one if you have a moment to maybe reflect on him. And it was a little bit before Chick. I want to say 3, 4, 5 months before that. And when I listen to that title track on Liberation Time, it reminds me of this cat and Eddie Van Halen. We've never talked about him. He's considered this huge force on the guitar, influenced so many different kinds of people. And when I think of you and your speed and your innovation, your pioneering nature for what you've done, reflect on this guy. Did you ever meet him, interact with him, and what do you think of what he brought to this instrument that you play?
I know I never met him, unfortunately, but I'm still a fan of Eddie. Eddie was a revolution on the guitar, but he had a colleague, Alan Holdsworth.
Yeah,
because those two developed. I'm getting signs from the. We have guests coming. I'll be there in a few minutes. They both developed this technique on the guitar that just blew me away. And Alan and I, we go back to the 60s. And in fact, he replaced me with Tony Williams' Lifetime. And I would, whenever I had a chance, I would go and see him. But he was this very deadpan kind of guy, and I'll never forget, I went to see him. Actually, when I first heard Gary playing drums, it was with Alan Holdsworth. It was in the early 90s. I was in London with the Free Spirits, Joey DeFrancesco and Dennis Chambers. And Alan was playing, and Joey and we went down to see him. And so after the show, I went backstage, and he was always so self-deprecating. And I said, that was amazing, Alan. He said, oh, no, it was really shit. No. And I said, Alan, if I knew what you were doing, I would steal everything. I have no idea what you're doing. I mean, it's like outrageous what you're doing on the guitar. And him and Eddie had a different style altogether, but they both developed this technique that is used by a lot of guitar players today. I came up with the other school. My school, maybe it's because I was a pianist and I listened to piano and horn players. I had to articulate everything. You know what I'm saying? I had to have the right hand in there, not just the left hand. And so, and I never, I'll never get that together. Maybe in some other lifetime. But I am such a fan of. I think he was a beautiful guy. I mean, because I'm a fan, incorrigible fan of Michael Jackson. And when I had Thriller, and Eddie playing solo, guitar solo. I mean, it's so over the top. It's just over the top. And I loved it. I listened to it, I don't know, I must have listened to it 1,000 times because it's just so great. I mean him with Michael, that combination is beautiful. But even with his band, with
Van Halen.
What's his name?
Van Halen, were you talking about, or?
Yeah, the singer in the band.
David Lee Roth?
Yeah, that's him. Yeah. Who I really like too. I like the whole band because it was a happy band.
He was very influenced by James Brown and all those yells David Lee Roth would do. Or one time I met him when I was really young in radio, and he had been covering James Brown rather on a solo tour. And I mentioned to him how much I love James Brown, and he looked at me and was like, "A lot of those yells, a lot of my screams, a lot of my bit came from loving him." So that's funny that you give him credit too.
Oh yeah. I mean, who didn't love James? James was a revolution, but Eddie was his own revolution in the rock world. He just turned the guitar on his head like Jimmy. He and Jimmy, the two pivotal players for me in guitar playing, technique, sound, because I just mentioned like coming up as a piano player, and when I definitely got turned on to jazz, that was Miles. I said that's my school. There wasn't a guitar player in Miles' band, and then I was following Coltrane. There was no guitar player in Train's band. In all the great bands, I was this to Archie Shepp or Sonny Rollins. And Sonny Stitt, great post bebop player. No guitar player. There was never a guitar player in the band. So I got taken by the horn, and so that for sure affected the way I approached the guitar because they articulated every note, and so I had to do the same thing. And so once you get on particular technique that you develop, to change the technique, that's and I would like to have been able to do that, but hey, they did it great, didn't they?
And you flow like water, like you said that time. You've also explained that before about how you followed John Coltrane, the way the notes would come out, and that influenced how your playing is, and it's like,
oh yeah,
it's incredible, John. And I don't want to keep you from your dinner engagement either. You're such a generous cat, and I can't tell you how much I value when I talk to you. I never want to be an irritant to you and keep you too long. I just can't thank you enough for sharing all the stories.
Oh, you're very kind. It's always a pleasure, Dave. Always a pleasure. Aloha, my friends. It's John McLaughlin here. And yes, I'm back at Hawaii Public Radio. Public Radio, my favorite. Oh, yes, I had a lot of fun returning to the Off the Road series because I'm off the road. Unfortunately, I'd like to be on the road, but here I am off the road. And thanks, Dave. Oh, it's great, Dave. What a lot of fun. Thank you.
And thanks, John. We appreciate it. And I give you a big hug, and thanks for doing this.
You bet, man. You bet. Take care of yourself. Stay well. Stay healthy.
And we'll talk to you next year, I hope. Fingers crossed.
Amen. Thank you.
Take care,
Bye.
John. Aloha.
Bye. Aloha.